Ladies and gentlemen, on July 1st, 2027, 12 West African nations plan to launch a brand new currency called the ECO. That's Nigeria, Ghana, Senegal, Cote d'Ivoire, Togo, Benin. The list goes on. One single currency, one trade bloc, one monetary union. But here's what nobody is saying out loud. 3 countries will be standing on the outside looking in. Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, the Alliance of Sahel States, the AES, the same 3 nations that walked out of ECOWAS in 2024, are now about to be locked out of West Africa's biggest economic project in decades. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the question is not whether this is happening. The question is the ECO an economic tool designed to isolate the Sahel? Or is this actually the push that forces the AES to build something even more dangerous to the old order? I'll give you an honest assessment. First, what the ECO actually is. Second, what the Sahel is doing about it. And third, ooh, this really hurts. Let us be clear about what the ECO represents. This is not just a currency. This is a 3-decade project that's been delayed, revised, and delayed again. Originally supposed to launch in 2023, then 2025, then 2010, then 2015, then 2020, and now, ladies and gentlemen, 2027. To even qualify for the first phase, a country must meet 4 primary convergence criteria: single-digit inflation, a fiscal deficit of no more than 4% of GDP, central bank financing of the deficit capped at 10% of the previous year's tax revenue, and gross external reserves covering at least 3 months of imports. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. In the entire history of this project, only Ghana has ever met all 4 primary criteria in a single fiscal year, and that was back in 2011. So the 2027 deadline, let's just say it is ambitious. 6 countries are expected to enter the first phase: Nigeria, Ghana, Liberia, Sierra Leone, Guinea, and the Gambia, subject to meeting those criteria. But guess what? While ECOWAS was busy announcing its 2027 currency launch, the AES was not sitting around waiting to be economically encircled. In December 2025, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger officially inaugurated the BCID-AES, the Confederal Bank for Investment and Development. Initial capital, 500 billion CFA francs. That's over $820 million. This bank is designed to fund roads, energy projects, mineral extraction, all without touching Western lenders or ECOWAS financial mechanisms. And then there's the currency question. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is where we have to be honest. In January 2026, Mali's Ministry of Economy and Finance officially denied that the AES had any roadmap or timeline for a shared currency. There were rumors, strong ones, about a new currency called the Sahel to replace the CFA franc, but Mali killed those rumors publicly. The denial, however, tells its own story. The fact that they even had to issue an official statement tells you these conversations are happening behind closed doors. Nobody denies something nobody's talking about. The AES is playing a long game. They know that launching a currency without sufficient reserves, without fiscal coordination, without established monetary governance, that's a recipe for inflation that could destroy their economies overnight. So, they're building the scaffolding first: the bank, the satellite infrastructure, the defense cooperation. The currency comes last. So let us answer the question. Is the ECO a weapon to isolate the Sahel, or does it actually hand the Sahel more leverage? Here is my honest assessment, ladies and gentlemen. It's a little bit of both. On one hand, yes, if the ECO launches and 12 ECOWAS nations are trading in a single currency, while the Sahel remains outside, using the CFA franc or eventually their own untested currency, that creates trade friction. Cross-border commerce becomes more expensive. Exchange rate risk increases. The AES countries lose access to the liquidity and stability that a larger monetary union provides. Nigeria alone has a GDP larger than all three AES nations combined. When Nigeria moves its trade to ECO, the Sahel feels that. But here's where it gets really juicy. The ECO also forces the AES to accelerate their own economic sovereignty project. And that may be exactly what the old order did not want. Let that sink in. If the ECO had never been pushed, the AES could have drifted, still using the CFA franc, still tied to the French treasury, still dependent on ECOWAS financial architecture. But the 2027 deadline draws a line in the sand. It says, build your own house or stay outside in the cold. And ladies and gentlemen, the Sahel has gold. Burkina Faso is Africa's fourth largest gold producer. Mali is not far behind. These are resource-backed economies, a currency anchored to actual mineral reserves, not French guarantees, not ECOWAS convergence criteria. That is a different kind of monetary proposition entirely. Now, can they pull it off? The technical execution is the question. The real question. High security spending, inflationary pressures, limited access to financing. These are the real constraints. But the political will, that's already left the station. So where does this leave us, ladies and gentlemen? The ECO is not simply an isolation tool, and it is not simply a gift of leverage to the Sahel. It is a deadline. ECOWAS has set July 1st, 2027 as the date West Africa's economic architecture either consolidates under one roof or permanently fractures into two competing blocks. If the ECO launches successfully, the AES faces a choice: negotiate some form of association with the ECO zone or commit fully to building a parallel monetary system backed by their own resources and their own bank. If the ECO misses its deadline again, ladies and gentlemen, and history suggests that is a real possibility, the momentum shifts. Every delay makes ECOWAS project look fragile and makes the AES slow, deliberate approach look wise. What do you think about this? Is the ECO a genuine step toward African economic integration, or is it a political weapon dressed up as a currency? Do let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Representing A to V's Flow, thank you, and I'll see you in my next video.